Hello, my name is Alec Lam. This is my 15.1.12 term project video, and for my project I decided to create a web app database that models a way for charity organizations to be in touch with remote areas regarding information on that area's resource levels. So the three types of users I have for my web app are a community user, administrative user, and a warehouse user. So what a community user can do is input the amount of resources that community has through a login and have that information interpreted by algorithms that are then sent to the administrator. And the administrator can then determine how much of that resource that community has and can transfer it from the warehouse to that community. Also, what a community user could do is see that other communities lack a certain resource and transfer their own resources to that other remote community. So let's get started. So right here, I have my community login screen. I have the same for administrative users and warehouse users right here. And what I want to do first is create a new community. So click there, brings me to the new community page, and under each title of the page, I have instructions on what to do so that the user can understand how it works. So area name, do mud, password 15.1.12, population 100, grade levels, do 10,000. Water levels the same. So after submitting, this information will then go into a data table that the administrator could see and will be interpreted to determine the minimum amount of water and the minimum amount of grain required for survival for an entire month. So we can see that by going into the community account. Submit. And there we go. So as you can see through this table, we have the community name, their current resource levels, the population, and the minimum grain, minimum water, and urgency level. So the minimum grain and minimum water are calculated relative to the population. And you can see here, I developed functions that take in the parameters of grain level, water level, and population to determine how at risk the community is of crisis mode. So up here, let's see, I have two functions that determine the minimum grain and water required, and we can see that right here. That is relative to population. And the urgency level is then calculated on how their current levels of water and current levels of grain compared to the minimum of required for survival for 30 days. So the lowest urgency is 1 because this community has enough resources to last for a while, and the most urgent level would be 3. And that would be if both of these levels were below the minimum required. So on this page, we could update the community resource levels. So let's say we still have 10,000. Oh no, oh. Name 10,000, 10,000, and population is still 100. And what I have here is a section to allow the user to donate their surplus or excess resources to other communities that are in need. So I already preloaded some areas into the database already, but what I have here first is the maximum amount of resources that the area can donate to others before going into a risk mode. So these are calculated by the amount of resources that the area has, and it won't allow the community to donate more than 3/2 of the minimum resource allowed. So I developed functions in the back end here, like all three of these, to like allow, like see here, like allow the community to donate X amount of resources. So let's say we want to help out Morewood. So we are allowed to donate 5,000 pounds of grain, and the suggested amount would be below or at this level for Morewood. So transfer resource, we're going to transfer grain, and we will transfer, let's say, 3,000. Actually, yeah, let's do 3,000, and that will be going to Morewood. So, looking back at the information, if we're donating 3,000 pounds of grain from Mudge, that should leave the grain level to be 7,000, and that should also alter the donation suggestions as well here. So let's see if it updates. Destination and password confirmation, and submit. Okay, cool. So we clicked update, and from what we can see, as we predicted, we have 7,000 pounds of grain, and that adjusted the grain donation, the max grain donation we were able to make, and also these suggestions. So what did that do in the database? So let's check with our administrators, and let's see how that worked. Okay, so if you look here, we transferred 3,000 pounds of grain to Morewood, and it originally had 3,100 pounds of grain, but we can see that the transfer was made since this is calling upon the database that is stored in the Django file before. So as an administrator, this user is allowed to see all of the data from the registered areas here, and is also allowed to look at the warehouse stocks of each of the registered warehouses. So from this information, we could see how the minimum grain is calculated here, and same with water, and also the urgency levels. So we could compare, say, the urgency level 2 over here. It does not reach the amount of grain required for a population of 9,000, but it does reach the water levels for minimum water for this population, so it's urgency 2. And this is how the urgencies are varying. So in here, we have a transfer option for an administrator to use to go over the data up here and see which areas are in need of the most resources. So in here, I developed the communities that are at the highest crisis, that require the most resources, since Morewood does not satisfy either of the minimum grain or minimum water levels here. So that's in here, so the administrative user could see that Morewood needs donations, and it also suggests other communities that are below the minimum levels. So we could see Morewood needs grain and water, and Donner needs grain. So let's see where we could get that from. So let's try to satisfy this. So we're gonna donate this amount of grain to Donner and see if that satisfies that value. Okay. Oh, whoop. All right. So we also have warehouse origin, which is where the resources would come from in the warehouse. So we'll do the underground. And Donner. And submit. So what that should do is that should get rid of this suggestion of Donner and allow them to break out of the urgency level 2 and hopefully go into the urgency level 1 according to the backend algorithms. So we submit, transaction complete, and there we go. As you see, Donner is now in urgency level 1 since it is above the minimum grain and minimum water requirements for resource levels. And as you can see, the underground was updated since we took that amount of grain from the stock and transferred it to Donner. And in suggestions, we could see that that community does not need any more resources anymore. All right, cool. So those are the two ways you could transfer the data in between the areas. And I don't remember if I mentioned before, but in the communities, you could also get the suggestion option as well. So check here really quick, and you can see that Morewood is in need, and it will only allow you to do a certain amount of transfers since it wants to keep that community at a safe level first. All right. So one last feature I have is the ability to get or to remove a community from the database or administrator or warehouse. So you can just go into remove area, say want to remove Mudge, confirm, community deleted. So we should go back into the administrators and be able to see that Mudge's information no longer exists. Submit. And there we go. Mudge is no longer in that. Okay. So the reason why I feel like this system of transferring information and resources is valuable because it gets resources to areas that don't have access to as many opportunities to have safe levels of water and grain or food at all for a given amount of people. And this also allows the other surrounding communities around that area in need to be able to help out a neighbor. And I feel like being a good citizen in helping others and being able to share knowledge, share resources, share whatever between groups is something that is really important in creating a healthy global society. So that's why I chose this term project. Thank you for listening, and I hope you have a great day. Thanks for watching.